Welcome to setting up a camera for rendering. In this video, we're going to be learning about the camera placement. They are a directional object, so a camera has a front to it, and that's the bit we look through. We're going to overview the camera settings themselves, and you can have more than one camera in the scene, but only one active camera, and that's the one that you'll be rendering from, and I'll show you how to switch between those as well. So let's hop over into Blender. Okay, so over in Blender I've opened up our chess scene that we've been working on. I'm first of all going to unhide the pieces and the camera because it was hidden over here. So I'm going to hold down Control as I click the little eye in the outliner, making sure that everything beneath the hierarchy is also unhidden. We'll add our pieces in a moment, but let's play with the camera. First of all, where is it? So let's click on Camera. And here it is. It's tiny in our world space because our chessboard is quite huge. So we've got a couple of design decisions. Once the board is made, we can always scale it a bit down. I think it's a factor of 10 too large at the moment. Or alternatively, we can play with it at this range. And I'm going to play with it at this size and this scale because it's going to highlight some of the issues you may have if you are rendering certain size objects. So the first thing we're going to do is see what the camera is currently seeing. There's a couple of ways of doing that, but the easiest one is to go down to View, and we've got an option here for camera, and it's numpad 0. I don't have my numpad attached, so I'm going to use the menu system at the moment. So when we click that, that's what our camera is currently seeing. The rest of the grayed out area we cannot see at all. Now when moving the camera about, you can literally use the G key, like you would do any other time. It looks like we've got incremental snapping turned on. Yep, we have. I'm just going to turn snapping off for the moment so we can move about. Now you can have more control obviously by constraining to the X, Y and Z axis. Now what will happen when you're using the X, Y and Z is it will lift it up and down globally, but sometimes it's much more intuitive to switch to a local. So if we press Z again, oh, where's it gone? Well, that enables us to zoom in and out. Oh, there's something funny happening there. Ah, that's interesting. The camera seems to have a clipping range, and we'll go into the camera options in a moment and play about with that as well. So we can set the camera forward and back, as we can see there. If we use X, oh, not to delete the camera, let's move it first on X. Well, that's the global X, and then we can go X on the camera itself and move it from left to right, and locally Y will be up and down as well. This is great using the constraints, the local constraints, when you want to rotate the camera. So when you press R to rotate, we get this kind of feeling a bit giddy. Great for those more action shots, I suppose. But if we go Z and then Z again, sorry, just Z once in this case, it will pan around like this. This isn't panning, this is actually rotating. Panning is moving across the scene like this. So there's lots of things you can do in order to set up quite a dynamic scene, and you can move the camera up and down until you get to a place where you can see the whole board. So I'm going to do that now, and we can see most of the board in this situation, and I'm just going to move it across. There we go. I'm happy with that, apart from the fact that I can't see what's going on. So what's going on there? So with the camera selected, in the properties pane there's also a camera icon, and here it is. I'm going to make this bit bigger so we can see what's going on. So there's quite a few options here. There's perspective view, which is on by default. We can set it to orthographic, which is great if you're rendering up drawings for someone, but it's not going to look very realistic if you set it to orthographic. And panoramic as well. Then we got the focal length of the camera, so that changes the focal length. The lower that number, the more wide angle your view is going to be, and it's set to millimeters at the moment. So the next option down is Shift, which shifts the camera, pans it across essentially from its default position, and Y will do up and down. A great way of altering that. I'm going to set that back to 0. Clipping. Now this is when the start of the clipping is how close will it actually show you your objects. If you're really close to something, you may get clipping issues right from the very beginning of your model, so we zoom in too far. Now the end clipping, that's what's causing this issue here, and if we move that higher or lower, you can eventually fill up the entire board in the camera view, and that's fine at this particular camera distance from it. At 132ish, it's absolutely fine. camera, there's a little drop down here, and camera presets. That's quite cool. You can switch between real life cameras, so that's a great way of, if you're taking real footage and adding your rendering on top of it later on, we'll get to things like that, you can match your camera that you've just used. Brilliant. And finally, depth of field. Well, that's how you can keep one of your objects in focus and blur out the rest of the scene. We're not going to go for anything like that at the moment. We just want to render up our scene and see what it looks like. Now, because this is the active camera, we can have more than one in a scene. We can see what the rendering looks like straight away by going up to render and hitting render image. And it will render the view we've currently got, and the shortcut for that is F12. When we do that, we see we've got this image here. Now, to change the settings of the render itself, that's over in the properties with something that also looks like a camera on the far left. And if we click on that, we've got the couple of options, including a button to render anyway. Now, further down here, there are loads and loads of options, and we're not going to go into detail at the moment. Suffice to say, one of the most important ones is this resolution, which is the resolution of the output image, and usually it's set to default to 50%. Now, the issue with it being set to 50% is indeed 50% of that there. So if you wanted a 1080p, a high def image, you'd have to whack that up to 100% before hitting the render button here, F12, or up on the info header, up on the info header, render image. And then we get a much cleaner and crisp image as well. But it does take longer. In fact, it takes about 4 times longer to do the difference between there. Now, there are further options further down. The performance one is one of the big ones for people. Playing about with these settings can improve, and that is per computer basis, depending on how many cores you have. And we're in Blender Render at the moment, so we're only using the CPU for rendering. Then finally, our output folder. Now, this is quite important because at the moment it's in a temporary folder, but you can set that to somewhere else. So as you generate your images, you can have an output folder for them as you do. And this is great because we can go to a PNG, and later on we'll set this up for when we're rendering animations as well, because it essentially will create a video for us. So let's hop over and create another camera real quick. So because we've done a rendering, we're now in the picture view, so we're going to have to change ourselves back to the 3D view. Excellent. Okay, so we've got our camera, and it's actually way out here in our scene. So I'm just going to duplicate that camera and put another one over here. Now, if we go to view camera again, you will see that we're still on that original camera and not our new one. But because our new camera is selected, what we can do is view, cameras, and then set active object as camera. And when we do that, this is the camera that we're now looking through. And of course, we're not looking at anything yet because I've plonked it somewhere random in our scene. So if I go and grab this new camera, I'm going to actually move away. So the moment you move away, you're no longer in the camera view. I'm going to lift it up so it's above our board. Then I'm going to go view camera again. Excellent. I'm going to rotate that around its own Z axis. So we're looking at it from there, and I'm going to move it out ever so slightly so we can see more of the board. Brilliant. And now when we go render image, it's the active camera that we render from, so that we can render it from that side. And if we select the other camera, go view, let's switch back into 3D view, go view, cameras, set active camera, and again numpad 0 if you've got that. And then when we go to render again, we get our, that's the same view. If I clicked on the wrong camera, probably. So let's go back to 3D view, select that camera, go to view, cameras, set active object as camera, so control and numpad 0, then you can go, I want to say file, then you can go render image, and there we go. So control and numpad 0 will switch to your new camera. And you could do great things with this later on. If you want an object to look at another object, when we get to our characters, etc. later on, you can set up a camera within or just in front of the person's face. So when you're actually doing your animations and things like that, or even your stills, you can guarantee that your model is looking at another object in your scene or something like that, because that's what you're seeing through their eyes, so to speak. Okay, so it's challenge time. I would like you to finish off the board and render it. So you will need to append all of our pieces into the scene, the ones that we've got left to do. Duplicate the white pieces to create the black pieces, and you'll need to change the material so it's a black piece again. And then set up the scene itself to be more interesting than just a starting pose. Finally, remember to share your render in the discussions so I can see how you guys have gotten on. Pause the video now and give that a go. Okay guys, welcome back. Let's finish off this board and render it. So back over in Blender, let's go and add our necessary pieces. So I'm struggling to move my board about for some bizarre reason. I think I need to reset my view to the current object. View selected, that'll do. Yes, that sometimes happens if you zoom too far in or out. I'm glad it happened so I could show you it does happen from time to time. So we need to bring in some models. So let's go and append our... we have brought in our bishop, so we don't need that. Let's do the king, object, king. And I'm just going to go through and do every other one really quickly. Knight, object, knight. Then into pen, back out of here, queen, where are we here, object, queen, append, rook, object, rook. Brilliant, so we've got all our pieces on top of one another. Let's turn snapping to increment on since we're dealing with real world scale, and we can literally just move that guy over here. I'm going to turn face snapping on. Move him and put him in the right place. Brilliant. In fact, I do want increment turned on, and I'll just constrain the movement itself to the XY plane, and then I can place it exactly in the middle. Let's grab the next one. It's the king. So the white queen is on the white square, so he'll be over here. So let's grab it, constrain it to the Z, and put him there. I think I'm going to have the knight next. Let's grab him and constrain him to the Z axis and put him there. What have we got now? We've got the queen. Excellent. So again, let's move her to there. Brilliant. So we just want to duplicate linked our rook and our knight. Now they look slightly different colours. I am a little... oh, the rook is in completely the wrong place. I am a little concerned that the normals may be around the wrong way on those particular models. I'm not sure if they are or not. And it looks like these are now floating, so I'm just going to delete those and do them again. So when I moved them, I didn't constrain it to the... let's duplicate it. Linked. Okay, linked. Then move the new one over here. Perfect. And do the same with our rook. Excellent. So those are all those pieces there. I do want to just go into the mesh objects themselves. Just go into this one here, edit it, select everything within the mesh itself, and then we're going to go Control N just to make sure the normals are the right way around, and we'll do the same to the rook itself. It may be that they've not got the white material applied to them as well, so let's go and check that out. No, they don't. So white square, okay. None of these appear to have a white material on them yet, so it might be worthwhile doing that now. Let's call this material white piece. Excellent, and let's make it quite specular. I want my pieces to be shiny and as white as it can be. There we go, that's that set up. Now here we can use this drop down and apply white piece, and it applies across. I'm just going to do the same to all of the pieces now whilst I'm thinking about it. White piece, and then the pawn at the front as well. Setting that to white piece will do them all because they're all linked. So that's our board basically set up. We've got a bit of organisation to do in the hierarchy, so let's do that now. Let's put all of these, I'm going to create a layer of hierarchy just to keep things organised themselves. So I'm going to add an empty and call it nights, so I can keep them just a plain axis and call them nights, white. Just realise if I'm going to duplicate this, I'm going to have to do a lot of renaming. May not do for the purposes of this exercise, so I'm going to put the white knights in there, and then the white knight in the white pieces. The low poly king can go in, the low poly queen can go in, the rook themselves, because it's implied by white pieces itself, so if anything in here says white, it can be truncated to just bishops, knights, plural, and pawns. They're absolutely fine. It's implicit that they're white because they're under the white pieces. I'm just going to join the rooks together as well, so let's add the right shortcut, add a empty called plain axis. It would have been nice for it to be over the rook itself. Let's do that again. Empty plain axis and call it rooks. And put those under rooks. And put rooks under white pieces. And then we've got a nice tidy hierarchy here. So we've got our lighting and our white pieces. So then we should be able to select all of our objects underneath by holding down Control and clicking the little mesh icon there, the little empty icon. And now I should be able to, I don't want to duplicate linked, I actually want to do a separate duplication at this point. And there we go, we've got our other pieces. And I'm going to constrain it to the XY plane and pop them there. Obviously they're round the wrong way at the moment, so we can rotate on the Z axis by 180. And they've moved around. And we need to bring them forward again and probably move them across so they're in the right position. Excellent. And white pieces 0, 1, so we'll call this black pieces. Excellent. White pieces, black pieces, and we just need to colour them in the appropriate colour. So them being as they are, we need to create a new material. So let's bring the properties pane back up so we can see it. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call it new. I'm going to call it black pieces. Excellent. And I'm going to set the colour to black. Unsurprisingly, I'm still going to give it a lot of specularity, so it's got a nice sheen to it. So 100% on both. I'm not sure. Obviously, we may edit this in the render in a moment. So we've got those there, and finally, let's apply that to our models. Oh, I don't need to grab that. So we've got this here, black pieces. Excellent. This one here looks like it's still got the white piece applied to it. So let's remove that, and we've got the black piece there done. And here, let's remove that material and add black pieces, and do the same on the rest of our models here. Apply black pieces here, remove that material and apply black pieces, and 2 more models to go. It's no longer a white king, it's a black king, and our final thing here is to make the queen black. So there we go, that's all that roughed out. Let's see how it looks in rendered mode. So let's go and view it from the camera. So we've got our angle right, that's absolutely fine, and render our image. Wow, excellent. So let's zoom in there, see how that looks. I really like that, that's absolutely brilliant, that's turned out wonderful. A couple of things that I could do here is move the pieces about. I'll leave you to do that because I'm running rapidly out of time. And of course the king and queen on the black side are currently on the wrong squares as well. I'd love to see your renders in the discussions. Please share, and I will see you in the next lecture.